Ever wonder who to call to book your dream celebrity for your wedding, business event, or private gathering? For 49 years, Bruce Merrin has been the go-to expert booking up celebrities from Elvis Presley to 4 U.S. presidents. His clients include the Fortune 500 and Fortune 1000 companies. Today, we hear from the legendary Bruce Merrin as he shares how he built his PR business, secured A-list clients, and mastered the communication and networking skills that made him a powerhouse in the industry. Bruce is a sincere friend of mine, and majority of the guests that you hear from the show is introduced to me by Bruce. So I have to thank you very much for that.
That's so kind of you, and I'm sending you and everybody around the world love from Las Vegas, the entertainment capital of the world. So love from Las Vegas, and thank you for that very kind introduction. I appreciate it, Jerry.
Absolutely, Bruce. Can't wait to hear how your journey begins.
Well, everything that I owe is to my mom. So I've got to tell you, everything in my entire life I owe to my mom. But my journey really did begin thanks to my mom, because at an early age, she was always there to encourage me and motivate me and inspire me. And the first thing kind of in the business area that had a spark, Mom was a graduate from the University of Missouri, the very legendary journalism school. So when I was in junior high school, Mom, in her very loving way, said, Bruce, why don't you sign up for a journalism school? I think you would enjoy journalism. So I followed Mom's advice. I did take journalism in junior high. I loved it. And then when I went to high school, I took journalism class again, and I became the sports editor of the newspaper in my high school. So Mom right away was helping me with good guidance and suggestions. So everything in my life and in my career, I owe to Mom.
Wow, such an inspiring story. So it was really that small stepping stone, becoming the chief editor of your school's newspaper, that eventually lead you to the way of meeting Elvis Presley, right?
Yeah. Yes. It was my mom. And here's what happened. First, and I'll tell you the story, when I was in the UCLA Film School, which Mom had recommended, she said, Bruce, I think you would love the UCLA Film School. I followed her advice. She was right. I loved it. So the Elvis story happens this way. I graduated from the legendary film school at UCLA, and Mom said to me right before I graduated, she said, why don't you seek a job at MGM Studios? I think you would do great at MGM Studios. So I followed her advice. I had an interview, and 2 days later, I was hired at MGM. At that time, that was the biggest studio in the world. Think back to Wizard of Oz and all the amazing movies. So I had a job, thanks to Mom, at MGM. Not only that, but my office was in the Thalberg building. That was the most legendary building in the entire MGM lot. So my very first week, I'm there. I'm a rookie. I'm a young kid at a UCLA. The president of MGM Studios comes in, talks to me. He says, Bruce, I would like you to have lunch with Elvis Presley. We have a brand new film. This was 1972, Jerry. The name of the film, and by the way, it's a great film. It's called Elvis on Tour. So the president said to me, Bruce, how'd you like to have lunch with Elvis? I said, my God, he's my favorite entertainer. So Jerry, I walked into the commissary, and there's the most handsome guy I've ever seen in my life. Elvis is sitting there. I sit down next to Elvis, Jerry, and I smile and I say, Elvis, we are really going to get along. Both of us are mama's boys, because everybody who knows Elvis, he was a mama's boy just like me. So Elvis smiled and laughed, and that was my introduction to Elvis, and we hit it off so well. I did a great job, Jerry, doing the public relations on that film. Then I wound up working with Elvis his entire career on his films and his TV shows. And right here in Vegas, everybody knows his famous shows at the International Hotel, Jerry, here in Vegas. I wound up going to probably 500 of his shows right here in Vegas. And what an amazing entertainer he was, Jerry. He's so well known, of course, for his concerts. At the end of every concert, he sings a song called The Trilogy. I just got chills just thinking about it. And he was just such an amazing person. I'm humbled and blessed that I got to work with Elvis. But again, it goes back to my mom. It's all thanks to my mom, Jerry.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't MGM the legendary studio that later created Steven Spielberg's legendary movies like The Jaws and so on?
You are absolutely right. And as a UCLA film grad, I love Spielberg. I look up to Spielberg, and I just can't tell you how much I think and admire Spielberg. And to me, one of the greatest films of all time, Schindler's List. Did you like Schindler's List?
Absolutely. I love Schindler's List.
So I had a story for you. This is a story for you that I think you'll really
Enjoy. And this is great. I haven't told a story on it. I've done a lot of interviews, many, but I haven't shared this story. One of my clients was a gentleman named Leopold Pfefferberg Page. A client of mine asked me to meet Leopold for lunch in Beverly Hills. So I sat down. They didn't tell me who he was. He says, "This is a surprise." I sat down to Leopold Pfefferberg Page. He rolled up his sleeve, and on his arm were the insignias. The Nazis captured him in Poland, and he was in prison camp, there in Germany, and thought he might be killed because he was in the prison camp. He was saved by Schindler. He was one of the few people that was saved by Schindler. So his life was saved. So when I was having the lunch with him, and he's telling me this incredible story about Schindler, I said, "I think you should write a book." And so we got together with an author. He wrote the book called Schindler's List. When Schindler's List was written, I said, "Let's go meet Steven Spielberg. I think he would be the perfect one to produce the film Schindler's List." So we met Spielberg. Spielberg loved it. He wound up producing one of the greatest movies of all time. So Leopold and I were at the Oscars, the Academy Awards. We're sitting near the front row, and Spielberg wins the Oscar. He wins the Academy Award for Schindler's List. Anybody can Google it now. You'll see at the very beginning of his acceptance speech, he says, "And I want to thank Leopold Pfefferberg Page. This movie was done thanks to him." And you can imagine how I felt. I was involved with getting the movie produced thanks to Leopold. So anyway, when you mention MGM and Spielberg, yeah, I'll never, ever forget that. That was my role with Schindler's List. And if anybody watches the movie Schindler's List, at the very, very end of the film, they have a shot in the cemetery, and Leopold is in that final shot. So thank you for mentioning Spielberg. Thank you.
You managed to turn a miracle story into one of the most powerful films in history.
No, you're right. And that's the blessing for me. Since I've been involved in entertainment my whole life, as soon as I met Leopold, I saw that this was a book, and in the future, a film. I just saw it. So that's one of the assets that I have by working in this industry so long. I knew, we all know the amazing story right now. And his life was saved thanks to Schindler. So anyway, thank you for bringing that up.
Wow. Amazing, Bruce. And
Yeah.
how did the meeting Spielberg eventually lead up to you meeting the 4 U.S. presidents?
Yes, and I really do appreciate your mentioning that, and you're right. So as a segue from Steven Spielberg, as you know, we have Bruce Merrin Celebrity Speakers in Entertainment, and it's one of the most famous speakers bureaus in the world. It's been going on for 50 years, and I'm going to lead up to your question. So when I started my company, imagine the first two sports stars that were my clients were Jackie Robinson and Muhammad Ali, and my first entertainment clients were Elvis Presley, you mentioned him earlier, Michael Landon, and Johnny Carson. So I started, 50 years ago with these amazing clients, and I started building a reputation. So what happened when President Reagan left his presidential office? He lived in California. He actually had an office in Century City in California, very near where my office was in Beverly Hills. He had his secretary reach out to me which was incredible because I was a big fan of President Reagan when he was president. And she said, President Reagan has asked, would you meet him? He's interested, if you would be interested in booking President Reagan for speaking engagements. I said, oh my goodness, that would be an honor. So I met President Reagan, and he's so charming and charismatic. And I said, President Reagan, it would be my honor. And I wound up booking him, I would say, a dozen different speaking engagements, including some internationally as well. And while I have booked all of the past presidents, he would be way up at the top of my list for my favorites, because not only was he charismatic and intelligent and humorous, but when he spoke to an audience, he had them at hello. He was just an amazing speaker. So thank you for asking about all the presidents. And yeah, he was the very, very first one that I ever booked.
So your 4 U.S. presidents include Lyndon, Reagan, Carter, and sorry, can you?
Well, President Ford, and of course
Ford.
there were
Wow.
other President Clinton. Because in other words, every past president after President Reagan, I did book. But since I'm in Vegas, I'll share one story that I think you'll enjoy. And this was amazing. Right here in Las Vegas, I was able to book President Ford. And by the way, some people don't know this. President Ford was a great athlete. He was a star athlete at the University of Michigan. So anyway, I booked President Ford here in Las Vegas, and I was sitting in the front row of his speaking engagement, and a delightful presentation. So when President Ford finished his speaking engagement, they gave him a big standing ovation. The Secret Service ran up onto the stage. They were ready to whisk him into the limousine and take him away. So this was what was so cool about President Ford. President Ford held up his hand. He said, guys, I think these nice people in the audience have some questions for me. And President Ford stayed on the stage, Jerry, for 30 minutes. He answered questions from the audience. And I just, I thought it was such a beautiful gesture. He could have easily gone to his limousine and say, hey, I made my money for the engagement and left. He cared about the people in the audience. And I told him right before he got in the limousine, I said, President Ford, what a beautiful thing that you did. And you made all the people in the audience happy. So these are the kind of experiences that I've been able to enjoy, Jerry. So again, thank you for asking about the past presidents. Thank you.
Wow, what a story. I had a chance to take a look at your clients list, and I gotta say, it's very, very impressive. You got the Magnificent Sevens, you got the Apple, Amazon, Microsoft, and so on. And what kind of entertainers do these companies look for?
Yeah, usually they're looking for big name, either very big name stars or really big names in the business world. Two examples would be I booked Richard Branson, who is one of my heroes. I mean, one of my heroes. If I listed a top 10 list of me, Richard Branson would be among them. So I did book Richard Branson for Apple, and he did a great job. Steve Jobs was there, and I was a hero because, of course, Richard Branson, such a humanitarian, he did an amazing speaking engagement. The other one, which was one of my favorites of all time, and I'm glad you asked me that question, Robin Williams would absolutely be my favorite stand-up comic of all time, favorite stand-up comic, but also one of my favorite actors in films. I mean, he was great in films. So, Jerry, I got this really interesting call. It was for Bank of America. They called me. They said, Bruce, I know that you work with Robin Williams. He said, this is a little kind of funny request. Do you think he might show up for the speaking engagement? It's going to be a surprise for all the people in the audience. Do you think he might show up as Mrs. Doubtfire in costume and then do a stand-up comedy? And I said, gee, I'll be happy to ask Robin. I'm very close with him. I love him. I don't know if he's going to want to do this, but I'll happily ask. He was such a nice guy. He says, Bruce, that's a crazy, funny idea. So he said, I'll do it. So imagine when they brought out this mystery guest. They didn't say who the guest would be. The curtain opens and out comes Mrs. Doubtfire. And as soon as he came out, everybody in the audience knew it was Robin Williams as Mrs. Doubtfire. And so he did some Mrs. Doubtfire things. And then he took off the costume and he did one of the funniest stand-up routines that I've ever seen. And like I said, he definitely is my favorite stand-up. But again, what a brilliant, brilliant actor. Dead Poets Society. I mean, just so many. He was also in Good Morning Vietnam, and I'm a Vietnam vet, and he was really good there. So that was one of my favorite bookings of all time. Robin Williams showing up as Mrs. Doubtfire. Isn't that something?
Oh, wow. You are the dot connector for all the famous celebrities. Have you noticed any characteristics that they possess that most people lack?
Well, the one thing that I would say, all of the celebrities, the A-level celebrities, the Johnny Carsons and the Michael Landons, they all seem to have tremendous passion, tremendous desire, and also the ability and the wish that they can impact the lives of the people that they meet. Impact lives, I've been using that term for myself for many decades, but it goes way, way back. And impacting lives is something that I think all of them possess, and also determination and the dream to achieve. They're all amazing dreamers, having that dream and then making it come true. You may remember there was a big hit in the 1970s called Dream Weaver. It was a big hit and still very famous today. But most of these top name celebrities, they love being dream weavers, having dreams and make them come true. An example, because we're talking, right now, Michael Landon, who is one of my most famous clients of all time. The first time I had lunch with Michael, he's sitting across the table from me, just like Elvis Presley was. He says, Bruce, I've had a dream to do a new show. He said, Bonanza was a big hit, but this is a new show, and I've had this dream. He says, my dream is to do a show called Little House on the Prairie. I said, wow, tell me about it. And then he started telling me about Little House on the Prairie. Well, obviously, that dream of his certainly came true. It became one of the most successful TV shows of all time. But that's the dream weaver part that I was just sharing. Not only did Michael have that dream to do Little House on the Prairie, but he made it come true, and one of the most popular TV shows in history.
Holy cow, Michael Landon. I noticed that your speaking style is very entertaining. What makes your communication style unique in securing A-list clients?
Well, I think so many people have said to me, Bruce, I really love your passion, because when I'm talking with people and trying to book a celebrity speaker, a sports star, or an entertainer, I'm not a salesman. I have never, working with my Celebrity Speakers Bureau, been a salesperson. I'm there to help the meeting planners have the most successful meeting or the most successful event they've ever had. So I'm always there to try to assist them and help them, because nothing makes me happier than at the end of the event, the meeting planners come to me, they say, Bruce, this was the best event that we ever had. One example would be, I booked all of the inspirational and motivational speakers starting from the beginning. Dr. Wayne Dyer is one of my all-time favorites, and certainly to this day, if I think people in the world made a list the best ever inspirational, motivational speakers, Dr. Dyer would be right up at the top of the list. But as an example, every single time that I booked Dr. Wayne Dyer, not only would he get the standing ovations and sell all of his books, the meeting planners would come to me and say, Bruce, Dr. Dyer, he's the best speaker that we've ever had. Thank you so much. Bruce, you're our hero. So I love to make those certified meeting planners happy by booking the best person for that event. And that also includes entertainers, because there are times, we were mentioning earlier about these big companies like Apple. If they do want to book an entertainer, it's going to be a big name entertainer. And right here in Las Vegas, I had the pleasure of booking one of my most famous and popular entertainers of all time, Celine Dion. And I must tell you, Celine Dion is an angel. She lives here in Vegas. I absolutely love her, but I had a very big corporate event here in Las Vegas, and the people said to me, Bruce, can you book Celine Dion? It would be our closing act. I know it's going to be a lot of money, but can you book her? And I said, as a matter of fact, I know that I have the ability, because when her show began in Las Vegas at Caesar's Palace, the name of that show was called A New Day. And we were lucky to do some of the public relations on A New Day starring Celine Dion. So I knew her. And of course, I knew that she lived in Vegas, and I had all of her information. So when I went to Celine and I told her all the information, she said, yeah, Bruce, I'll be happy to do it. And again, I was a hero, Jerry, because, I was booking one of the most famous singers of all time. And this was after Titanic. It was after. And you remember when Titanic came out and, she sang that amazing song. She was such a big star already, but, this was a little after Titanic. So anyway, she was an angel. But the great thing about our company, the Celebrity Speakers Bureau, we book motivational speakers and sports stars, but we also do book entertainers. And so that, that was very, very special. Another one that we booked here in Vegas, which was great, was Mariah Carey, who has, such an amazing voice. So those are two different ways that our bureau works. Whether they want an inspirational speaker or a sports star, we do that. But if they want entertainment, which very often is the closing day of an event, that's when they usually will book entertainers. So we do both. But again, my bottom line with everybody, all the event planners, I want to make them happy by booking the best person that I possibly can.
Just out of curiosity, my favorite motivational speaker, Brian Tracy. Have you ever booked him before?
I have back.
Oh, wow. Brian Tracy, too.
Yeah, this would go back a couple of decades, but certainly Brian Tracy, he's one of the best, and he was great, and he was amazing, and it was a pleasure working with him. Also going back, and you're a young man, and I don't know if you know this name, but again, he'd probably be in the top 5, Bob Proctor. Yeah, Bob Proctor, for example, he was in The Secret, the very popular DVD called The Secret. But he was one of the first really famous legendary speakers. And Bob, going way, way back, he was the one who taught me, this is decades ago, to do affirmations. He said, Bruce, I am a big fan of affirmations. And he said, he would talk about it in his talks. But when I had my first meeting with him, it was a lunch. He was from Canada. He said, Bruce, I'm big on affirmations. He said, I really feel if you see it and then you believe it. So when you're doing an affirmation, it could be a financial affirmation. It could be about your life affirmation. It could be about health. So anyway, I've been doing affirmations literally for decades, but it started with Bob Proctor. And any of your viewers, if they see The Secret TV, DVD, he's in it very, very prominently. And another person that's in The Secret DVD and an amazing speaker that I love booking is Jack Canfield. Jack Canfield wrote Chicken Soup for the Soul, and Chicken Soup for the Soul became the biggest selling book series of all time. No book series has sold more than Chicken Soup for the Soul. And I admire I admire him so much. And I booked him about a year ago here in Las Vegas. It was at the MGM Grand. It was for Century 21, the big realtor company. And he has an amazing, entertaining presentation. But what's great about his presentation, he talks a little bit about Chicken Soup for the Soul. And he says, I want to tell all of you in the audience, and I want to share something. He starts putting up on the screen a series of letters, maybe 21 letters, from Simon & Schuster and Random House, all the biggest publisher in the world. I don't think this is a good idea. I don't think it'll ever sell. So in other words, everybody said to him, we don't like the idea of Chicken Soup for the Soul. So what happens? And he has the audience laughing. He says, well, Simon & Schuster didn't like my idea, but guess what? It became the biggest selling book series of all time. So he says, so if you have a dream, don't let other people tell you no, follow your dream. And anyway, Jack Canfield is a great, great speaker.
Such inspiration. And is there any tips and tricks that you would like to give to newbies for networking with high-profile individuals?
Yes. What I suggest, and it'll be a Michael Landon story for you. I told you earlier how my mom has always impacted my life. I had
Wow.
an office when I started my career after MGM. I worked with my mom's legendary PR firm for 3 years. It was at General Service Movie Studios in Hollywood, a very big movie studio. And that's where I learned PR. I learned from my mom. So we were at this very famous movie studio, and our next door neighbor right at the studio was George Burns. He was our next door neighbor. So anyway, one day, mom comes up to me and she says, Bruce, I heard that Michael Landon is filming a movie right here on the lot at our studio. Maybe you want to go and visit him. So this is how I'm going to give you a networking tip for all of your audience. So I said, Mom, that's a great idea. Because everybody knew me at General Surf Movie Studios, they let me inside the stage, and I got to see Michael shooting a movie scene. When they finished the movie scene, Mike was all done, and he walked over to the side of the movie set. So I approached him in the most humble, kind, nice way. I had a business card, and this is what I'm going to share with you on the business networking side. I gave my business card to Michael Landon. I shook his hand. I said, Michael, Bonanza is one of my favorite TV shows of all time. I'm giving you my business card, Michael. I know we've never met. I'd love to have the honor and the privilege to take you to lunch. Would you kindly consider it? And he smiled, real handsome smile. He says, Bruce, he put the card inside of his wallet. Back then, they didn't have the man bags, but he put it inside his wallet. Bruce, he says, I'm going to call you. And sure enough, a couple of weeks later, Michael called me, and that's when he told me the story about Little House. But regarding networking, you see that I took the lead to take the chance to meet Michael Landon, who was a superstar. I mean, at the time, he was already a superstar. He had already starred in Bonanza. At the time, it was the #1 TV show for years. So I took the chance on networking with him to shake his hand, to meet him, not be all shy and stay in the background and not even talk to him. I made it a point to meet him, give him my business card, and look what happened. He became my client. And, to this day, one of my favorite clients of all time. And an hour ago, Cheryl Landon, Michael's eldest daughter, just called me, and she became a client as well. So in terms of networking, always take that opportunity to meet people and shake their hand. And, you think about walking a tightrope, walk the tightrope, take that chance, because networking is all about reaching out to people and not being so shy. Because just think, if I never took the chance to meet Michael, he would have never been a client. And as it turned out, one of my 10 favorite clients of all time, all because of networking,
It's really about that one bold decision to seize that opportunity. Bruce, you are fantastic. You have been booking celebrities for 50 years. How can the audience reach out to you? How can the audience reach out to you to book a celebrity?
Well, thank you so much. There's a couple of easy ways. First of all, on social media, my name is Bruce Merrin. They can go to Facebook and meet me there. They can go to LinkedIn, Bruce Merrin. They can meet me there. They can go to our Celebrity Speakers website, which is brucemerrinscelebrityspeakers.com. So those are three easy ways to reach me. And I always respond. I never have that stuck up attitude. Oh, I'm not going to respond. I always respond because I appreciate being able to talk people and be able to impact their lives. So those are three of the easiest ways that I recommend. And of course, I'm on Instagram as well. Bruce Merrin Speakers on Instagram.
Wow. Thank you so much. And make sure to link those media links to the podcast description so the audience can find out, reach out to you. And as you know, PR, right? Public relations is the first two letters in profit, right?
That is absolutely right. And I've used that terminology for years. And you were just talking about networking. It's good when you're meeting people for the first time that have never met you before. If you have, they talk about an elevator speech when you're first meeting somebody. So when I'm meeting somebody on the business side, I'll say to them, good morning. I'm Bruce Merrin, and our tagline is the first two letters in profit are PR. And immediately a lightning bolt comes. Oh yeah, the first two letters in profit are PR. So anyway, you mentioned networking earlier, but thank you for mentioning about me, and people are welcome to contact me. I always love talking to people. I love it.
Thank you so much, Bruce. It's an absolute honor to hear all your legendary speakers and your stories. And thank you so much for coming on to Sweatpants and Suits. Thank you so much, sir.
It was an honor and a privilege. And Jerry, you are the greatest, not Ali. You're the greatest.
Success isn't just about a title, it's a journey. Sweatpants and Suits interviews the world's most interesting career professionals, uncovering the lessons, setbacks, and breakthroughs that shape fulfilling careers. Whether you're just starting out or making your next big move, these conversations will help you get there.